Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us as we have our fireside chat on a magnet for collaboration, what employers want in the new workplace. This is definitely a hot topic, and we couldn't ask for a better expert to share her insights than Elizabeth. As Nick mentioned, she's Senior Vice President and Global Head of People and Corporate Functions for CBRE. Just happens to be the world's largest commercial real estate services and investments firm. With 600 offices in 100 countries, and we'll get a little bit more into that. But welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you
so much. Okay, we're going to get right to it, and let me check my time to make sure that we stay on track, and we're right on track already. So, okay, Elizabeth, as the global leader in commercial real estate, your company is in a position to be keenly aware of how the return to office migration is happening. So where would you say we are right now, both logistically and culturally?
That's such a great question. And I'm so excited to be with all of you in my same profession. Great to be with you all. And I'd like to just kind of find a way to highlight some things that I hope will be useful for you and the time that we have to share together. I think if I was to categorize where we are in this journey, what I bet most people would say is that we're at different places. Yeah. And, when we think about logistics and we think about what do our offices look like and how is that going to work, I bet everybody in this room is starting to reimagine what that could potentially be. How do we attract people back to the office? And then in terms of culture or how we do that all together, I think we're all realizing that we have to have a different approach. And we have to ensure that people have an experience when they're coming back to the office. CBRE is somewhat uniquely positioned because we have over 600 offices, and most of our employees continue to come to the office during the pandemic because we're there to serve our clients. And we've been saying for years, and if you're one of our clients, I hope that you've heard this from us, but we've been saying for years that an office should be a magnet and a destination, not an obligation. And so that, I think, is really important. And we use our offices, and I bet many of you do as well, to express our brand. And that means that we bring people together in a meaningful way and hope to impress our culture upon people by having an environment where people like to come. And one of the things that has really changed, obviously, for all of us is the way that we work. And we are working hard to empower people. So when we talk about empowerment, we look at our 600 plus global offices, and we focus on how to be your most productive self. So that most productive self concept is really critical and important, and that means that our managers and our employees need to be able to openly communicate about what does it mean to be productive at work.
Productive. I've been reading a lot about that. Companies are really trying to, make sure that everyone has the opportunity to become as productive as possible. So, talking about your own significantly large company's policy and journey, how has that gone? Where are things now with CBRE?
So, as I mentioned, many of our employees were coming to the office every day, but in our corporate offices, they were not. So, when you think about the employees that were all working from home, what we've really designed as our practice, more than our policy, is to have managers that really speak with their employees about what's going to work best for their team, what's going to work best for their function, how do they interact with their key stakeholders, and make it work that way. So what does that mean? That means that we have to have managers that are really comfortable in having these conversations. Because in some cases, a manager may say it would work best for us to have everybody back at the office at least 2 or 3 days a week. And in some cases, a manager may say, hey, look, there's only 3 of us on the team. Nobody knows who we are. If you want to work from home, great. But managers are not easily comfortable in having a conversation about that type of flexibility, and we spend a lot of time with them to get them comfortable. And then for employees, we really want them to feel heard and to feel like they have that flexibility and to be felt like a manager is looking at them as an individual. And so I think that that's a big change for our employees and for managers, not just at CBRE, but across all of our companies globally as we think about what does it mean to be heard individually.
Yeah, first we were everyone back, and then there was a lot of uproar about that. Then it was back a certain number of days, but we've gone exactly to what you've just said. You have to be flexible, and you have to find something that works for your team. And empowering the managers is so critical, and that's interesting what you've said about the adjustment there. So that's with CBRE. Let's talk a little bit about your clients now. What patterns are you seeing that work and don't work in terms of a harmonious and collaborative return to the workplace? Harmonious and collaborative.
Harmonious and collaborative, what I'm seeing from clients. So one of the things that my mic just went a little crazy. Apologies for that. One of the things that we are seeing for our clients is that the extremes have been more difficult. What do I mean by extremes? The organizations that came out and said, everybody 100% back to work. Or the companies that said, forget it, we're going remote, everybody stay home forever. Each one of those has their challenges. So if you're in one of those situations, you already know what those challenges are. The people that are fully remote, as HR professionals, we are thinking about how do we ensure that these people understand our values? How do we indoctrinate them in our culture? How are we sure that they are feeling connected to the organization and that their engagement is riding high? If you're one of those companies that said everybody back to work and we have no room for flexibility on that, there's a good chance you're missing out on a talent source. And it may be harder to attract the talent that you want. So where we're seeing that sweet spot is in that hybrid, flexible work environment. And I bet many of your companies are already in that space. But some of the things that we do see in terms of creating a harmonious, collaborative environment include the fact that, hey, look, when we all started coming back, I have to say, our own C-suite executives were coming in suits. And the rest of us were saying, it's hard to give up our yoga pants. And so, when these executives were coming in suits and we all felt this pressure to dust off our dry cleaning bags and figure out how we were going to put our suits back on, we were pretty disappointed. And so our executives caught on to that fairly quickly, and they're coming in jeans now. So a relaxed dress code really fits today's environment, no matter how formal your office is. I think that creates harmony. The tools and technology. So we've all worked out technology at home. I hope that your company has. You've got your setup. I've got dual monitors. I've got a third monitor with my laptop. My Zoom works perfectly. I've learned how to manage my dogs so that they're not barking when I'm on. That's not perfect. Amazon sometimes interrupts us. But in general, it works and people are pretty forgiving, right? But I think that when we think about then, how that technology works, does the same thing happen when you get to the office? So when you walk in, do you plug right in and does everything work? Or are you trying to manage the camera, get that right angle? Is the lighting weird? Is the same experience you have at home what you have at the office? And I think those tools and technology that are seamless between an office and home are really critical. And then we touched upon this, but reimagining the role of a manager. As HR professionals, I bet you guys are spending a lot of time on that, about what is that role of that manager? How is that manager working to help that seamless transition when half of the staff is in the office, half of the staff is at home? And in many cases, like in our organization, we have people that could be at home in Singapore, they could be at home in Australia, they could be in the office in London, and we're trying to have one meeting. So, we're traversing time zones, we're traversing technology, we're traversing, half the people in the room and half the people on Zoom. And it's really critical that managers get good at that, to be able to say, how do we create an inclusive environment for people that aren't all collectively in one room the way that we did. There were all the unwritten rules in the boardroom. And those unwritten rules are gone now. Like, we have new unwritten rules. And I think that Zoom has helped us with some of that, about acknowledging each person in each square. So managers really need to be focused on that. And I think that, when I think about a manager focus, managers truly used to be focused on being fair. And I think that was great. And fair included treating everybody exactly the same. Wow, that doesn't work anymore. Now managers need to be focused on being equitable, not fair, not treating everybody the same, but recognizing people as they are, individuals. We are humans. We have dogs. We have children. Things aren't always perfect in our lives. We need flexibility. And so managers need to be able to adopt that thinking and change from that easy, put everybody in a box. As long as I've got everybody in my box, I'm safe. You're not safe in that box anymore. We really need to be more individualized.
That is such an important and an insightful point. So thinking about workers, what do they want from the workplace as they start spending more days back in the office?
Well, I kind of start with an example to say, have you ever been out on a beautiful boulevard looking for a restaurant, and you walk by the first restaurant and nobody's there, and you think, I don't think I want to go to that restaurant. Looks kind of empty, and you question whether or not the food quality is good, or if the ambiance is going to be right, or if you're even going to have any fun. It's the same thing with an office. If you have an employee walking into an empty office, they're going to feel a little trepidatious. They're going to be worried about, why am I here? Is this going to be an interesting day? By the way, is it safe? Like, all of those things cross people's mind. And so, we're starting to look at things like the space and how many people we bring in at one time. All of those things become critically important. So beginning with capacity, a lot of our clients are starting to say, do I need the exact same footprint? Do I need a smaller footprint? How are we going to operate moving forward? But you don't want a big cavern of a room with 2 or 3 people sitting in it. That's a terrible experience. And so I think it begins with capacity. But then we also have the opportunity to create an experience when people do come to the office. So we've all been HR people. We've all been talking about employee experience for a long time. In this exact moment, I think employee experience, I would like to highlight what I mean by that, because that can mean different things to different people. I think that people really want to have, as I mentioned, a great sense of technology, something that's modern and works. They want to have a place to have, quiet time. They want to have a space to be social with their team. And they also want to feel like their company cares about them. So we've really changed about the employee kind of showing up to say, I care about my company, to employees saying, hey, what about me? And I want you to care about me. And so, things that we really are seeing our clients care about is a healthy environment. And what do I mean by healthy? Like, people want access to clean, healthy air. So it's not a sick building, it's a clean building. It feels good when you go in. They want to have access to sunshine. So get those offices off the window, put them in the middle, have your workspace where people can get sunshine. People want to have pleasing lights, so that the days of the garish LED lights all beating down on us, really that's hard for people. And then we can't have a conversation about people without talking about food. So healthy snacks and access to healthy foods is really important to people and how they feel about coming to work. And that's what I mean about experience in this capacity. It's how do you earn that commute from people? Because we know people are in general worried about their commute time, right? And you have to earn that commute. You have to make people feel like this was worth my time. I was socialized. I was properly treated. I was cared for. somebody cared about the fact that I was here today and I had a great experience, and I'll come back another day because of that.
Earn that commute. I'm going to steal that. When we started the whole pandemic journey, there was a lot of emphasis on trying to make your homes more like your office. And when we came back, it turned into trying to make your office more like your home.
Yes.
With the snacks and the comfortable furniture and other things. So it really has been an incredible journey and lesson for in so many ways. So what opportunities does the evolution in the way that people work create for employers? And what kind of help are businesses asking of your firm when it comes to designing and reconfiguring their spaces?
Okay, I think it's a great question. And I go back to the evolution of the workplace speaks directly to the purpose of the office. So when you think about the purpose of the office, this goes back to your brand. So think about your own brand. At CBRE, we're incredibly proud of our offices, and we believe that they're a reflection of who we are. And we think that's bold, we think that's smart, we think that's modern, we think that's innovative. And when you think about a reflection of your brand, you have to be really careful that you're authentic. So like if I'm up here saying our brand, we're bold, we're smart, we are innovative, yet if we have leadership that's risk adverse and not innovating and not being nimble and making good decisions and not being authentic about who we are, it doesn't really matter what your office looks like or represents if you can't live that for your employees. So I think that's one thing that's really critical. We are also using the opportunity, and many of our clients are, and I bet many companies that are represented here today, to honor our commitment of being net zero by 2040. And so there's a great way to demonstrate that through a facility, and that's, of course, being LEED certified. I bet many of your buildings are. There are visible things that you can do, like having biodegradable amenities for your employees. I'm embarrassed that I have a bottle of water, but using sustainable containers for people to drink water out of, critically important, I think, to the environment and to the ways that employees connect to you. You know, like when employees connect to your employer brand, do they see that you care about the environment? Do they see that you care about the community? You know what this looks like around how people stick with a company that they feel that there's a values match. And, so I think all of these things are critically important. And then one last piece I would say is that when we think about how the workplace has evolved to be really inclusive of all people, so thinking about like people that are neurodiverse as an example, your workplace has the opportunity to really change and be different. And what that means is that your organization should be thoughtful about lighting and noise control and all of those things that are helpful or harmful to people that are neurodiverse. And as HR people, you know that is our wave of the future and an untapped talent source that's really critical to get to.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Okay, we only have time for one more quick wrap-up question, sadly, because this conversation could go on. So from your perspective, what does the workplace of the future look like? And how can it be made better to benefit recruitment, training, support, and retention?
So, not to be repetitive, but just to repeat one more time, I really believe that the workplace of the future needs to be a destination, not an obligation. And that we really should be using our workplace as an underpinning of all of the things that you just mentioned. So when we think about what's the right location, when we think about where are we going to be sourcing talent, who are the types of people that we want to attract, how are we going to bring those people into the office, and then how will we be using those facilities to ensure that employees have a great experience, that they feel connected into our culture and into our brand and into our values, I think all of those things truly make a difference. And so I would just say, for those of you who are sitting in this room and you have a seat at the table and you're talking to your executive teams, it's not one lever you can pull to get it right. It's many, many levers. And you need to be thoughtful about, like we all did some changes at one point to be, the high performance work areas. And that didn't really work. And that didn't work because it was really designed for people that are extroverts and love being in the middle of things with a lot of light and a lot of noise. And what we found is half the workforce went home tired and exhausted. And it didn't work for a lot of different people. And so now we have an opportunity to say, how do we make this a peaceful place? A place where it's healthy and a place where people feel cared about. And I think that that's our goal with a workplace, because what we're designing for is ensuring that we have the opportunity to operate with humanity. And if there was a silver lining that was coming out of the pandemic, we all know this. It was people want to be treated as a human and recognized as an individual. And your workplace should do that as well. So those would be the words I would leave you with.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Space has never been more important for all the reasons that you just mentioned. We really appreciate you sharing your insights.
Thank you, and thank you for your great questions.
Thank you.